Okay.
Okay. All right, it's 7:31, and I'm going to call this meeting to order. This meeting of the Denville Township Board of Education is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Notice of this meeting was provided to the Daily Record and or the Star Ledger of Morris County, has been delivered to the Township Clerk, and has been posted on the bulletin board of the Board of Education office and at each of the school buildings in the district. Roll call, please.
Mr. Capello,
Here.
Mr. Cass,
Here.
Mr. Lord,
You.
Mr. Kim,
Here.
Mrs. Wagner,
Here.
Mrs. Gould,
Here.
Mr. Anderson.
Here. We do not have a need for executive session, so we'll skip over section C and move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for joining us. And Mrs. Johnson, we're going to get started with our special presentation for special services. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for having me tonight. I'm here to provide an update from our Special Services Department for this current school year. So I'm just going to be going over, I'm going to give you an update on our student population at present that receive special services. I'm going to go in detail about our recent EDA program evaluation that we completed. Then a little update on our newer program, which is our mental health program at Valley View. And then an update on what we're doing with community outreach. So our current population for special services, we have 304 students who receive special education and related services at the present. In addition to that, we have another 21 students who receive speech-only services. So that's our total amount of students that would receive some type of individualized education program in the district. 96% of the students, we are able to provide them an appropriate program within the district, so they're receiving their services here in Denville. The other 4%, we were unable to provide an appropriate program here, so then we have to look at alternative out-of-district placements. We've been busy with referrals as usual. We tend to be very busy in the department. We're always getting new referrals, so we've had 46 students referred to us since the summertime, since the current, we switched over in July. 1 discount, and then we had 17 preschool referrals. And we have a wide range of needs that we have to try to meet within our district as much as we can. So we have students diagnosed with autism, we have students with learning disabilities, dyslexia, communication impairments, hearing impaired students, visually impaired students. So we have a lot of different needs that we're trying to meet within our district. So what does that require? Oh, yeah.
Sorry,
Okay.
interrupt. On that last slide, so 304 students have IEPs, 29 preschool. That's almost 10%, which I would imagine that there are students that get IEPs as they go into later grades, but is that a higher than normal number, or is that about average?
The past few years, it's higher. We used to be a lot smaller. The past few years, we've added a preschool program. So we now have 4 classes and 5 sections of preschool. So that started, I would say, now it's probably, this must be like about our 3rd year. Must be about our 3rd year with the preschool that large. And our classes fill up. We get, early intervention change, the early intervention system. So students are being identified earlier in the system before they turn 3. So then those students come to us already identified. So things are changing out of, so it is definitely bigger than it used to be. Definitely.
10% would be about what you would expect if it was spread across the
grades average, isn't it?
It
You got
is, however.
1 through 8, and then K.
Yep. But the interesting thing is, I would guess that you get a lot of students that second, third, even fourth grade end up getting IEPs that didn't have them in the earlier grades. So-
That's where the 4 to 6, yeah, those students getting referred to us
Yeah.
this year. And not all of those students may wind up needing special education because we don't, not every student that's referred to us winds up needing the services, but definitely we always have more students coming in.
Are the referrals in district then, or are some of them out of district referrals as well?
So they're in district, so they have to be a resident student to be eligible for our program. Otherwise, it would be in another district, perhaps didn't have a program, and they would contact us to say, could we place our student in your program? But for the most part, that's not typical. It's usually resident students only. And then the even the preschoolers, they're the students that are turning 3 that live in our community.
Yeah, those are probably, I'm guessing, referrals between either staff member referring or parent.
Correct, yes, it's a combination.
Grace, oh, I'm sorry. Out of the 325, or 325 represents, I guess, about 20% of the overall population?
Yes.
Is that a number that's been steady? Is that a number that you
It's
see?
been steady the last few years. It was 19.5%, then 20, and now it looks like it's 20 again. So it's been about like that for a while. And that includes the students that are speech. I didn't realize how the state was doing it, but I looked into this a little bit more. The state includes the speech-only students in the classification count percentage. So there are students out in the population that, for the most part, are receiving a general education program, but they have some type of articulation need, so they're getting speech, and they're included in that percentage. 21 of them this year. Good question. Thank you. Okay, so again, with all those different needs, with that decent amount of students that we have that need services, it requires a lot of personnel and professional development. So I just summarized up here who the core members of the Special Services Department for providing appropriate education for our students. We have the behavioral services, which you'll see we've increased that over between last year and this year. It's really increased quite a bit. We're working with the Uncommon Thread right now. They provide us with a board-certified behavior analyst and a behaviorist who support our programs. We have recently added the mental health services from St. Clair's at middle school. We're hoping to possibly add that to the elementary schools next year. We have special education teachers, related service providers, speech therapists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, the child study team who's doing all the evaluations and then provides the case management services for all the students, and then instructional aides supporting the students in the classroom when needed. Sometimes we need instructional aides for a variety of reasons. It could be a student who needs it in a 1-to-1 ratio. There's also legal requirements about when we go over a certain class size, we have to have an aide in the room. There's a lot of different reasons to have instructional aides, and they're an important part of the department. And again, the professional development. Now, the nice thing about having these different skilled professionals is they can provide a lot of in-house professional development. So having the occupational therapist, having the behaviorists available in the schools helps train our staff. Whether it's formal training or they're consulting in the classrooms, providing on-the-job training, having those people in the department is a big help in addition to the direct services they provide to the students. And then we have, because of all those different needs, we have a lot of different types of training going on. We've talked a lot here about the Gillingham training that we provide to multisensory reading skills to the teachers so they can teach the students with reading disabilities. We do a lot of individualized training. There might be a particular disability that is rare, that we're not familiar with, so we might have to provide a training on that type of disability for a particular group of staff. So all of that really is what helps make our program strong. So again, we're working really hard at our in-district program. So noticing right now, we're expecting a decline in the amount of students that need to go out of district. So back in the 15-16 school year, we had 14.5 students out of district. For the 19-20 school year, we're projecting 9 students. So that number's gone down. And because out of district placements do take up a large proportion of the budget. Because of that reduction, we're seeing that the overall special education portion of the budget is going down for next year, projection-wise. So the year we had 14.5 students who needed those specialized placements, we were at 19.1% of total budget. For next year, right now, the projection from the most recent information that you've been given is 13.3%. So we see a direct relationship to the ability to provide a stronger program in district for students and the budget. So one of our really specialized program that we spent a lot of time on is our applied behavior analysis program. And we just recently had it evaluated, so I wanted to give you an update on that. First, a little background on the EDA. I got this information. I think the Autism Speaks organization provides a good overview of what EDA is. So I just took a couple key bullet points from them. Basically, what they said was instructional techniques, strategies, and interventions based on the science of learning and behavior. That's what EDA is, and it's designed to address a lot of different skills that many students might develop naturally, wouldn't have to provide explicit instruction. In this program, students won't get those skills if they weren't explicitly taught. So we address language, we address communication skills, work on attention, focus, social skills, academics, and then decreasing any problematic behavior that's interfering with learning. They're flexible programs and they're very individualized. So that is a little overview of what EDA entails and why are we providing it in district. We have a high need. Right now we have 20 students in the program district-wide, so from preschool through middle school, including we do have one tuition student who comes to us from another district. And without this program, again, more students would have to be placed out of district because they need this specialized instruction and program to meet their needs. So the nice thing about doing it in the district, in addition to the fact that it's the least restrictive environment, I did tell you that it does impact our overall budget, but the really nice thing about it is you're giving the students a higher standard, their access to the general ed peers. It's a nice, it teaches the general ed students to be more mindful and aware of different types of students and learners and who they might encounter in the world. So there's a lot of benefits to providing the program in the district. So background of this program. In the 13-14 school year, we did have the program evaluated initially. It was in the early phases of the program. People that should come in and evaluate the ABA program are board certified behavior analysts, the BCBAs, because they have the expertise in this area. So we had someone come in, and they really found a lot of things that we needed to do. We were really in the early phases. There was a lot of work to be done. So whether it was even just agreeing that we're going to utilize ABA, that's going to be our main approach. Can we do other things for different students and be individualized? Yes, but is ABA going to be our primary approach that we focus on? So that's something that we needed to determine. They wanted the BCBA involved in the program, more one-to-one service for the students. They wanted us to develop community-based instruction as a program. Everything that would go into an ABA program, the data collection, so she really reviewed everything we were doing and said, these are the things we need to work on and improve. So we've had those recommendations available to us for the last 5 years, and we've been working towards all of those things. And, we now have, at this time, it was only Riverview and Lakeview that had a program. So now we have the middle school program in place because we want to be able to continue on and provide the services for students as they progress from grade to grade. We have community-based instruction that's been in place for a while. We have the BCBAs involved in the class. We set up special time for them to meet with the staff to provide training and consultation to the class to give them that oversight. So there's a lot that's been going on in these past several years. And they wanted us to self-evaluate or do some kind of evaluation annually. So we're always self-evaluating, utilizing the recommendations provided. But we wanted to get an update and feedback on how are we doing, now that we've been putting all this time into the program. So we then brought in a BCBA again this fall, and it was November, December. And they came and they really had very positive things to say. She was, for the BCBA, like I said, she was very positive. She found that we had strengths in all the areas that were assessed. These are the different areas she looked at. She said the classroom environment was very good. We had a lot of visual supports for the students. Students with communication and language issues need a lot of visuals. She felt that was very strong. She said the technical skills of the staff she was impressed with. The curriculum, we have a lot of different curriculums available, a lot of different approaches that we can draw from in this class, which we need for students who have so many different needs that we need to address. She said the data was good, the database decision making, that we were collecting data in a lot of areas. That was something they said previously we needed to increase our data collection. She found that we had done that. The staff interactions still were positive, and she was impressed with the independence of the instructional aides in the room. They like the inclusion opportunities we provide, we leader buddy programs at the different schools. Students are mainstreamed in lunch and recess. They go to different meetings, there's general ed classroom. So she thought that was all very good. And she said the two key things she got to the program that really helped overall was that we give them collaborative time, so the aides and the teachers have time to collaborate, look at data, and plan future programming for students without the students present, because we really can't be planning and collaborating with students there. So they have that time. And then she also said having that BCBA behaviorist oversight for the program. Those were the two things she felt were really an asset to the program. So we felt very good. I know it was really nice for the staff to hear all of this, because everyone's been working really hard the last few years, so it was really nice to get some positive feedback on how we're doing. She did give us some recommendations. One was to start working on fading some of the one-to-one support, because we want to start fostering independence, especially as they're getting older. She pointed out that once the students are in a post-21 program, it's never one-to-one. They'll be at least a dyad or more working on whatever skill or task they have. So that was important to start looking at, even if it's just fading proximity of the aid, different things we could do, different techniques to work towards that. Just to increase the students using their individual schedules so that they're, again, following their own routines and not relying as much on an aid to get them through their routine. We were going to add BCBA or behavior support for the middle school class, a little bit more time there, she said, because it's a newer program. She was, again, very happy with all the different programs we have in the classrooms to choose from, and she thought we should have established a written list of our different curriculum that we have available. So we did create that after she recommended that. And to establish meetings for our ABA teachers to collaborate. And I have a little picture there of our team. We got to meet on February 15th. So we were able to go over the results of this evaluation and also have them articulate and share. So we want to start doing more of that to just help with that continuity of our program. So that's the program, again, that we've been working really hard on for years now. I wanted to give you a little update on the newer program, St. Clair's program at Valley, what's been going on there so far this year. So they're providing a range of direct services with an in-house clinician. She's working with 23 students. She provides individual sessions for students, weekly or sometimes even more than once a week if needed. We have a boys' social skills group, a girls' social skills group. She can go into the home environment if needed for a student, which is some flexibility and something we haven't had the opportunity to do in the past. And we have utilized that service this year. And she will do assessments for students who might be a danger to self or others. So we have all of that direct service that she's been providing so far, and then indirect, she's met with families and Valley staff, or just met with families alone, built rapport, just to help the parents understand the program and get their parents' insight into what they need. And training for the Valley staff, they had a formal training the principal set up on the February 15th in-service, so they were able to provide the staff on signs of mental health concerns in students, build the staff's awareness on that. And then just as I said before, having these types of professionals with different skill sets and knowledge in the building is professional development for our staff, because you have that person with that expertise right there available readily if there's a concern or a question, and helps inform us. So that's what a little overview of what's going on there. And then just wanted to update you on our homeschool outreach. Continue to have our special education parent advisory committee. We have parents representing from each of the schools on our committee, and we have teachers representing each of the schools on the committee. We meet about once a month for executive sessions where we address issues and plan for different professional development. And we have Mr. Anderson on our team as a board representative, so thank you for that. And the parents also lead a support group. So without district staff present, the parents who are the executive members run support groups. They actually have one tomorrow night. And we advertise that. And, that's nice for the parents to go. It's informal, and they can find out issues going on, or also just provide support for the children. With our CPAC group, we're planning some workshops, and we've had some. Dr. Hall's came and presented on ADHD back in the fall, and we are bringing in our speaker, Russell Lehman, who is a motivational speaker, and speaks to parents about overcoming obstacles. He has a disability, and he's going to come and speak about that. But it'll be open to not just parents, but middle school and high school age students, staff. It's going to be, hopefully, get a good turnout for that. That's in April. And we also planning a community resource night. We've done this for the last several years. We're bringing different resources in the community, different agencies and services that are available out there. And it's like a resource fair, and parents can learn about all the great things that we have in our community. We have a lot, there's really a lot right here in Denville and in the surrounding area. So it's a nice opportunity for parents to come out for that. The related services staff, which is my occupational therapist and the speech therapist, this year initiated newsletters. So they're presenting newsletters in their particular area for parents, and those are going out through the Friday folder. We have it through the newsletter that way. I posted it on Twitter, so some nice information there for families and parents. Our child study team, as a result of last year, when we did the parent survey, we found that something that needed to improve was being more proactive with reaching out to families. So we did have a goal of contacting our parents twice a year, in addition to our usual letters, inviting them to a meeting, and in addition to responses to parents who have contacted us. So they were to call or email their parents in the beginning of the year, and then video. And then Twitter, we do have the Twitter account, and it's been in place since October 2017, but I did add it to our special services homepage now, so that way, even if someone doesn't have Twitter, they can go on. As soon as they go on that page, they'll see the latest information from our department. So that concludes the update, but if you have any other questions or comments, happy to answer them.
I had a question.
Yes.
A couple of questions. On the St. Clair's Clinical Services, it looks like a real good idea. On the left side, are there like metrics in place? For example, you got weekly social skills group studies with the girls and the boys there. How do we, measure how that's working out for the students from where they, from the baseline, where they start and where you expect to end up?
Yes, it's a good question. And it's a pilot program, so this is something we've been working with St. Clair's on, how to assess the program. That was something we've met and talked about. So the clinician is able to provide the students with screenings and assessments. Like she has assessment tools, so she's going to do pre and post to see if the areas of concern go down towards the end of the year, or it could be that they're exiting the program. So we do have a system in place for that. So that'll be something we'll have to look at as the program progresses to see how they did. But yeah, we got it.
Yeah, the other question I had was on the special ed costs. You had the percentages up there. I know Steve has talked about it on a lot of the meetings that you prefer to do things in house than outsource, sending them out of district. So the percent went down because we have less students. That's good. And you may not have the the information tonight, but I'm just wondering from a dollar standpoint, you have less students as a percentage of the budget, but from a cost standpoint, our budget goes up every year, and then the special ed costs can go up too, depending on what type of services we're putting the students in. So I'm just wondering from a dollar standpoint, it's close to where it was back in 15, 16, or, you know, more, the same?
So I know, and I don't have the exact numbers on the top of my head, I know it's less as a number. This I was looking at more from the total percentage of the budget, because like you said, the whole budget goes up, so the percentage of the special ed budget that, or the percentage of our budget that is special ed has gone down. But I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head.
I was just curious, yeah, I mean,
I know it's
those
less.
are great statistics there that we're, you know, we're doing about out of district. From a dollar standpoint, I know, you know, we go over some of the costs for these out of districts and everything, and you know, what you were paying out of district, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, they cost more now.
Yes,
Even though
yes,
you're not
that
paying
goes
out
up
less
every
students,
year.
Yeah, and it's, not to go off on a tangent, but I think the state is starting to recognize now too, what the special ed costs, the impact is to the school districts and everything there. So it's you know, something that really has to be monitored and looking for viable solutions where the kids get their education, what they need, but also not keep on seeing the pie get bigger and bigger with the special ed costs, and you have less money for everything else.
Right, yeah. I do know that the state is looking at this in particular, only because the assistant commissioner in charge of student services came to one of our directors meetings and was talking about it a little bit, and they are setting up different roundtables on different issues related to special education. I was invited to one on this very topic, on transitioning students back to district and providing appropriate in-district services. So that's one of the roundtable discussions we're planning. So yeah,
I don't remember what slide it was on. I was unfamiliar with one of the acronyms. I think it was OG.
oh sure. That's our yes, that's our Work in Gillingham training. So that's multisensory reading for students with dyslexia and other reading difficulties. A few years back, we trained a large amount of teachers all at once so that they would all have the Work in Gillingham training. Now we just every year if we have new teachers, we train when they come in. So that we're using the same methodology as the students' programs. Sure.
Grace, the 14 and a half down to 9. Can you give us a little more, I guess, on your thinking on that? Is why are you projecting that decline? Is it all about the programs being better? Is there something else? I mean, it's a big change, obviously.
So I think that everything, and it kind of goes into what we were talking about before, early intervention. I think everything's kind of getting identified earlier. So I do think one piece of it is that students get into the system sooner and get services sooner. So I think they're on a better track to begin with. And then when they come here, if we develop our program strong, which the program I highlighted is one that would be a place, a typical student in the past would probably have to go out of district if we didn't have this ABA program, which we didn't. We have, I believe it's like 40% of our out of district students, something like that, need this type of placement. So I do think that's a big part of it because we have students now who maybe weren't identified when they were younger, needed to go to an out-of-district placement because maybe the services weren't as strong then. And as the students come through, now we have a stronger program, it's more, we're able to provide it in district more.
And they have access to the longer, is what you're saying. Like, I mean, basically, they're getting these services early.
Yeah, because we know about them since before preschool usually, because they are getting their early intervention now. And then, but that's why it's so important that we keep that strong program here to help them stay on that track, meeting with success.
So you mentioned the ABA review. When was that, when did that take place?
The current one?
Yeah, a review. I guess when they reviewed you or assessed you.
It sounded like February. I could.
So we just got the report in January, but we did she came in November and December.
November, December. Well, congratulations on the results.
Thank you.
The one question I had, one of your earlier slides, the number of students were growing. Are there, or do you see students eventually phasing out of IEPs or no longer needing special services? I understand that certain diagnoses or conditions might not be favorable for that, but do you see, I mean, as the numbers grow, could there potentially kids graduate from it?
Sometimes they do. I find that a lot of times our 8th graders, when we have, so it's called declassification. So, every 3 years we have to reevaluate them. So every 3 years we're either retesting the students or at least reviewing all of our current data that we have available to see if they still need special education. So we do a review, and that's the law that we have to do it. But I'm finding, generally, I've had a few now in 8th grade where we're finding to not need services going into high school. So they're going to be declassified around that. Is it possible it could happen sooner? Yes, and it has, but it's not a high amount.
Typically, annually, well, we do this every year, annually we review each student. They may not be declassification, but we look at least restrictive environment. Can we move from a resource room to an in-class support situation? In-class support situation to, aid consultation, we try to look every year. And that happens annually, at their annual review.
Yes.
So we do try to reduce services if the students are ready, because of course we want them by 8th grade to go into the high school with the services they need, but the most independent as possible.
Yeah, great. So we're supposed to be looking at least restricted environment. So, yeah.
Grace, you talked a lot about the students in the program now. I guess, what are we doing to help identify students earlier, right? Because the earlier we start getting them intervention, the more likely we're able to get them declassified, if it's appropriate, obviously, but get them intervention. And I know from experience that process in getting an IEP can be very long, right? So what are we doing for our general ed, maybe this is more to Sandy too, for our general ed staff to help identify students that maybe need to get evaluated or need some extra help or support?
Well, we have a lot of benchmarks, and we do have an IRNS RTI process, which is Intervention Referral Services, and we look to see at each level. When we look, I think we're doing a better job, especially in the last 2 years, of looking at the data more consistently. That's why we have those collaborative time meetings in elementary school to look at that data and start to see if there are any red flags. And then those red flags can go to IRNS committee and look at, do they need more interventions in the classroom? Do they need basic skills first? We want to try all of those things before go down the road of giving an evaluation. If we can prevent that, we will. And that's why we put in things like our transitional primary courses, our classes, those types of things to prevent, if we can step in earlier and make those changes when it's developmentally appropriate, where we make the most significant difference, then we do. It's just, I think it has been a lot of training for staff. We're still working with the IRNS. We have a new IRNS plan rolling out, which I'm excited about for next year, which you're going to hear about as we put the final touches on that, tightening that up a lot for next year. Because that's the essential piece between the classroom and special services, is that intervention referral, and that's where we have to tighten up and make sure that we're actually getting the right students to and families to intervention early enough. That's the piece that's the next piece that we're working on.
So that you don't have to necessarily have an IEP to get a good intervention.
Right.
Yeah, because I think the problem is as time goes on, the more that student potentially slides further or doesn't progress as quickly as the rest of the class. And from just personal experience, having 3 kids in, I know that things move so fast with the curriculum. If you're behind, it's hard to bridge that gap to even get up to where they were, and then you continue to kind of, that gap widens, and then it's hard to get caught up, and it takes years potentially. So the earlier we can intervene and identify things quickly, then we can get whatever services they need, and potentially prevent an IEP, or at least if they need it, get it to them earlier and get the services they need.
If they need it right, we don't want to delay it.
Thank you.
I also noticed that you have a lot of support programs for the families and the parents, which is great. Do you find a lot of parents resistant or in denial to some of the recommendations, or is that a challenge?
The recommendations, like for their child's program, I think every family is different, but it's always hard in the beginning, I think, because it's the first time hearing something like that as a parent. So I think that's the hard part. So we do try to be very supportive and through that process. That's why I was thinking about it. Some states don't really have a case manager, but in New Jersey we have case managers, so that's something to be your point person and help walk through it and be supportive in addition to the teacher or whoever's working directly with the child. But I think some resistant to, maybe I'm trying to, do you mean like resistant, like they don't want the IEP?
That or just right now in denial or just don't care. I mean, I could foresee many different potential.
I would say most of the time, parents want the IEP, most of the time. There might be a here or there, it's less common. I think special ed has become a lot more, people are a lot more aware, maybe even just all the ability to talk, social media, things like that. There's so much more information about different disabilities now, so people tend to want the IEPs, I find.
I know at the CPAC meeting, even at the last one we had, it's a great forum for parents to feedback information. One of the things I think we talked about was even here, we're talking OG and ABA and all the case managers, and we talked at the last meeting about how do we make sure that as parents are new, don't even have to be new into special services, but just parents in general understand the process. The process is daunting sometimes when you're trying to get evaluated by them. There's assessments they're putting, tests for the students. There's a lot going on, and I know there was a lot of good feedback from the parents on the CPAC on, hey, how can we make sure that the parents understand what's going on? Instead of just saying, hey, it's what we're going to do, but understand, and I can tell you from the feedback from the parents that were there, they felt like they were part of that process. Not they're being told what to do, but they're getting feedback and saying, hey, this is what we think, what do you think? And that was I thought it was really good feedback from the parents, that they felt like they were part of that process as opposed to being told what's happening. But even if there's times that, hey, well, I hear what you're saying, but this is what I'm seeing, then the case manager and the team is kind of adjusting and saying, okay, well, we need to head down a different road or whatever. So it was a really good conversation in the last CPAC about kind of how do we get information to the parents and have them understand.
There is a section in the IEP for parental concerns too, so we always stress that, make sure you're taking parental concerns, so we can make sure we address that. Like you said, maybe we don't always agree on everything, and we are, at the end of the day, the education professionals are required to really use our professional judgment in making recommendations and things, but the parents are part of the team, and we want to make sure they're aware, understand, and reach an agreement on how we're going to get where we're going to get to with the students.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you
All right,
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Johnson, especially for not only what you do every day, but coming out and talking to us and taking our questions. We very much appreciate it, so thank you.
Thank you.
Get home with that baby. All right, we're going to move on to our agenda here. Mr. Forte is not here tonight, so you'll skip over F and go on to G on our agenda for Assistant Superintendent comments.
I do have comments on behalf of Mr. Forte. Just want to give just a quick one. We want to give a construction update with the vestibules that we are wrapping up the final touches. That Riverview and Valley View are operational. We were just waiting on the electrical to be placed inside the vestibule so we can move the scanner inside the room. That's where we're at with that. And Lakeview still has to work. And in the meantime, we still have the class 3 officer and another staff member that sits there and checks in any visitor that comes in before they get into the office. So that's where we're at with that. We're coming along. Assistant superintendent comments. We have our kindergarten pre-registration is still open. So we encourage anyone out there to please go on our website, just at denville.org, and the link is right on the front page, and you can pre-register your students for next year's kindergarten class. We currently have 158 students registered. That's 19 in the flex zone, 73 at Lakeview, 66 at Riverview. And that does not include any students that may be going either into transitional or repeating kindergarten at this point. We are starting our Future Ready process this week. So the summit is on Thursday, and we have 3 nice-sized teams, which at least 5 to 6 members from every school that will be attending the summit at NJIT on Thursday. And we still need 1 board member who might be interested. I know Gina said he might be interested in helping out if somebody else.
I would be happy, I'd be
That would
happy,
be great.
I'm very interested, and if someone else would like to step in on, that's totally fine too.
I don't know what does. You're our man.
No one else
So,
is-
and I will add you to the team.
Great,
So.
I will step in.
So the process starts this Thursday, applications open, and we'll work through the process, and they are due by June 30th. So we have 4 months to complete all of each school's individual applications. And then myself, Ms. Gorowski, and Ms. Costanza are the district personnel that will be working on the technical aspects of our instruction and technology plan. And this concludes the superintendent and assistant superintendent's comments.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cullis. Just as a reference, only because I was looking at it recently, so 158 for kindergarten registration. Our demography report for 1920 projected 149, with actually 139 births. So that was an odd year on births because we were 157, 139, 156, 156. So I don't know why it was an odd year, but interesting because we've been projecting above the demographer's report by about 10 or so last year and this year. So
If our trend were to continue the way it is right now, I'm predicting between 184 and 190 is what I'm predicting. I'm thinking the outgoing 8th grade class will be about the size of the incoming kindergarten class this year, just based on the way that families kind of start to float in between now, because it is only February, between now and September 1st. We get trickling in throughout the year. I haven't had a weekend that I haven't come back to a handful of names on the list, and I get a few during the week. So we just keep adding. And right now, we're just in the holding pattern, so again, I appreciate the patience of those families in the flex zone because we are trying to determine the number of sections that will be in Lakeview and how many sections will be at Riverview at this point. It may be exactly as it is now, 5 and 3, but likely it will be at a minimum 4 at Riverview, 4 at Lakeview, most likely 4 at Riverview, 5 at Lakeview at this point. But we'll see. Maybe we will not get any more between now and June, but then I think probably we will.
got it.
I'll keep you updated.
Thank you. That would, as a reference, that'll, if it gets up to above 187, that will be our second largest class in the district.
Our tipping point is 184 that we kind of predetermined. We could always go higher, but as of current board policy recommendation, that's our cutoff point for going to the 9th section. So as we, I don't know how many students are going to repeat kindergarten at this point because we always have some based on their birth date that parents decide that. So I don't know. I would say it's somewhere between 6 and 8 students might do that. So we would have to add that to the 158 already.
Thank you very much. Damaris, any business administrator comments?
I do. I would like to change the board meeting schedule for July 15th to July 22nd. Charlene Peterson from New Jersey School Board will be coming in that day to present the goal settings. So if there's no objection, I would like to make that change and advertise for the change in the board meeting.
Could you repeat those dates, please?
July 15th is the original scheduled date for the board meeting, and we would like to change it to July 22.
What I would ask is if over the next day or two, if you could shoot me and Damaris an email, let me know if there's any issues with that, and then we'll go with that. I know if anybody's like me, I need to go home and check with the boss. It's like, no idea what our summer vacation schedule is.
Would that be something that we put on the next agenda as a,
You just need to re-advertise, change the date.
don't we vote on the calendar at the beginning of the year? Does that mean to change it, we need to vote or vote on it?
There's no vote needed, we just need to re-advertise that specific change. It's already-
I don't know if we need to vote on that at the beginning of the year. I think we do it as just a courtesy to make sure we get it in the record, but I don't think it technically needs to be, right? Does it? Yes or
It
no?
needs to be.
It does? Okay. So what I would suggest is, since we've approved it, let's just go through the formality of doing on the next agenda. It'll be fine, it'll be plenty of time, it'll be March. We'll just put on the agenda to amend that date if we agree. But just let me know by Wednesday, if you guys, if that's okay, if there's any issue, me and the members. Thank you. All right, it is 8:17, and I'm going to open for our first open public comment section for anything germane to the district. Anybody has any comments, they can come on up to the table, give you the microphone. Comments? All right. Thank you for coming. Seeing no comments, I will close our first open public comment section at 8:17 p.m. and we'll move on to the agenda. Dino, would you mind moving us through old business?
Not a problem at all, right? If there are no objections, I would like to move items under old business, A, B, and C. These are the Treasurer of School Money Report, Board Secretary Report from January. We also have education reports of student enrollment in the medical office from January. We have some HIV cases. We have the memorandum of agreement between the schools and law enforcement for 2018 and 2019. We have actually two agreements with the police. One has to do with live streaming videos. And we're also going to be approving the minutes from our reorg meeting on January 7th, as well as the work session meeting and executive session also from January 7th, and our regular session and executive session from January 28th.
Second. Mr. Kim. Thank you, Mr. Kim. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, roll call please.
Mr. Capello?
Yes.
Mr. Cass?
Yes.
Mr. Lure?
Yes.
Mr. Kim?
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner?
Yes.
Mrs. Gould?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes. Mr. Wu, we're going to move through personnel, please.
Certainly, I would like to move, if there are no objections, as a block, items 1 through, items 1 through 7. These consist of extra pay for various things, such as the Teaching and School Success Academy, after-school enrichments, parent training. Under item 1, we have several leaves of absence for various medical reasons. We have approval for a marginal student to volunteer on the set of the Valley View School play. And we also have college students, approval for college students to observe in Denville schools.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Kim. Any questions, concerns, issues? Seeing none, roll call please.
Mr. Capello?
Yes.
Mr. Cass?
Yes.
Mr. Lure?
Yes.
Mr. Kim?
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner?
Yes.
Mrs. Gould?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes. Mr. Capello, would you mind moving us through instruction and program?
Sure. If there are no objections, I would like to move items under instruction and program 1 through 3 as a block. One is a field trip request list, 2 are workshop expenses, and then number 3 is, Dr. Collis mentioned in her comments, this is, I believe, resolution to participate in the Future Ready Schools initiative.
Second.
Mr. Cass?
Thank you, Mr. Cass. Thank you, Mr. Cass. Any questions, comments?
Just a comment, in IEP, Dr. Cullis gave us a nice rundown of the Future Ready Schools kind of process and program. The website has a lot of information about it's very similar, I guess, in some ways to Sustainable Jersey, and you have action items and goals that you want to try to achieve in areas that you focus on. So the team, I guess, will be kind of spreading out, putting a lot of information together over the next few months to satisfy the different requirements. Kind of fair kind of summary?
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Capello?
Yes.
Mr. Cass?
Yes?
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Kim?
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner?
Yes.
Mrs. Gould?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes. Mrs. Wagner, would you mind moving us through policy revision?
Sure, if there are no objections, I would like to move items 1. Under C, policy revisions, it's a list on the agenda, pages 5 and 6, but policy and regulations, all for first reading.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Any questions?
We're not approving or voting on this right now, right? We're just going to the first reading.
So we always approve first reading,
Okay.
but there's a second reading and adoption. So these are not adopted until our next regular session meeting next month. Yep. Yeah, so there's still time to ask any questions or anything. If you have any questions, shoot them over to Mr. Forte, or I guess the mayor on some of them, that's right. But yes, we're not adopting. Any questions on policy? Roll call, please.
Mr. Capello?
Yes.
Mr. Cass?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Kim?
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner?
Yes.
Mrs. Gould?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes. Mr. Cass, would you mind moving through finance, please?
Sure. Underneath finance, I'd like to move 6 items. Item number 1 is the check register for the milk fund, current expenses, general organization, and elementary enrichment. Number 2, we have a donation of $100 for park construction, to help purchase art supplies at Lakeview. Number 3, we have a donation of a clarinet from Mr. Brian Timon, the band program. We also have a generous donation of $2,000 to Valley Middle School from the Brooke family. Number 5, we have another donation from the Alliance to Save Energy for $250. This is Styles and Green Teams. And the last item, number 6, is to approve a settlement to reimburse parents $75 per hour for counseling for student number 202-4874 for fiscal year 2018 and 2019.
Second?
Thank you, Mr. Capello. And just for clarification for the record, number 6 is $75 per session, right, not per hour? Okay. Any questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Capello?
Yes.
Mr. Cass?
No on check 1176 for the milk fund. Yes on the rest.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Kim?
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner?
Yes.
Mrs. Gould?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes. We have no other operations, B&G transportation, right? I want to make sure. Okay, that moves us on to the good of the cause. I always just lump these together, correspondence, discussion items, other, so anybody has anything, feel free.
I would like to point out that when I was moving my personnel, when I was moving the personnel stuff, that I neglected to specifically point out that we are approving Mrs. Siemens, culturally esteemed student Samuel Lowe, to attend Valley View from April 29th to May 3rd. We've already voted on it and approved it, but I neglected to specifically say, call it to your attention, so I apologize.
Is she staying in your house?
I have absolutely no idea. I hope not, because nobody's told me about it.
Mrs. Stevens. Speaking of Mrs. Stevens.
I'd like to share 2 items.
Sure, please.
I attended my first PTA River Review School as my liaison. I introduced myself as Mr. Kim, because that was with the name on the paperwork. They had your name listed. But no, I met for about half a meeting or more. They were very nice, and the big item is the tricky tray coming up, so I'm going to share that with Saturday, March 23rd, 10 to 3 at Riverview. You can come by anytime between 10 and 3, and they'll call you back there if you win, so you don't have to be present to win. My other item is that this past weekend I spent at the New Jersey School Board Association Governance 1 mandatory training. Lots of fun. It was jam-packed, not many breaks, but I met a lot of awesome people, some local, some not, and I learned a lot. And I guess that's it. I just want to share. I'm all wrapped up now.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a good, it's a packed weekend, like you said, but it's really, it gives you a lot of information all at once, so. Thank you.
And I also want to say, I'm very grateful for all of you and for Steve and the staff in the office, because after, hearing situations that some other towns face, it's always in good hands here, that's all I have to say. I'm grateful for all the service that everyone has done before I joined the team, and look forward to being part of it.
I second that.
That's part of the fun of going to these trainings, is to hear about everybody else.
To get a perspective.
Yeah.
From the Lakeview PTA, I just wanted to congratulate them on a very successful talent show they held February 9th. The kids were amazing, and the PTA volunteers worked really hard to put that entire show together, so congratulations. And they also have a tricky tray, but it's a different setup than Riverview's. It's something you attend in Saracen. It's a dinner and a tricky tray, and that is April 5th, if anyone's interested.
If I may, I've spent a lot of time combing through the budget along with the audit from last year. And I sent out an email about maybe one metric. If there's questions that any board member has, I've also spent an hour with the members, so I've got a good or different understanding than I had last year. So, I'm willing to share any thoughts, or I also will be presenting to the next finance committee some suggestions on perhaps maybe some changes to the budget, so that perhaps we can include like security. I know that that's been a big topic over the past couple of years, so maybe just seeing some visibility into that as well, just to make sure that we're spending enough on security. So yeah, any questions or thoughts or ideas or anything that I can shed a light on, I'd be happy to share. So.
Thank you, Mr. Kim. I know I appreciate the look you've given and the different perspective, or I don't know if different perspective, but you've taken a good look at it. I would encourage everybody. We're in the thick of budget season, and I know Damaris has given an open door to anybody who wants to come and sit down and talk with her. I know Katie and I quickly sat down with her for about 30 minutes before the meeting tonight, but anybody who wants to, please do that, because very, very, very soon we're going to be voting on that preliminary budget. So if there's any feedback, when is the next finance meeting?